and which seems crazy, quiet little island, but it's not nice for cycling, and which is why, of course, we want to address that. All right, so let's call our meeting to order, and let's have a look at what we got here. The agenda, any changes to the agenda? Well,
I wondered if we wanted, with all the news about the Surrey light rail, SkyTrain, and the whole 10-year plan possibly going up, I just wanted to ask if Little Bowen Island has anything they want to say. We should put a recommendation forward at this meeting. I don't know if we do. We probably don't. You know.
But to which meeting? There's a meeting.
Well, the next mayor's
the next
transit
mayor's.
meeting, yeah, whatever that would be. I can't imagine, even if we did, it would be up to the mayor or the
It would be.
rep to
We'd
say
have to.
anything, right?
We'd have to wait till the next council, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
just flagging that.
Yeah.
That's
I
all.
mean, who knows what'll happen?
And I don't think we would
Yeah.
have anything important to say, but
Yeah.
just because of the timing, I thought it
Yeah.
would.
Yeah.
Okay, so no, I don't have anything to add to the agenda.
So motion to approve the agenda, and second, we don't need to say who approved and seconded. Okay, good. Those in favor? Suzanne, you okay with that?
That was Susanna.
Yeah, okay, good, thanks. All right, we have minutes. Any changes, omissions? Seeing none, motion to approve the minutes. Suellen, seconded by Todd. And Susanna, you in favor of that? We're all-
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So action items, we've got a giant list of action items. 4.1, so that's on page 11. So let's just have a look. Carry over from the July 24th meeting, include the communication of significant ferry issue alerts on the communications team meeting agenda. Did that happen?
So
Or-
you know what, I can report on that if you want it.
Oh, good, because I was the,
You weren't there. So it's come back to Ferry Advisory Committee, Susanna, that I think we fleshed out that I think it would have been a log in the engine, and we were talking about
Oh, way back.
BC
then.
Ferries talking to the communications team here more better. And, and there became.
It is a perennial item on the FAC agenda, I can assure you.
Okay, so that, I think they kind of came in when things don't always happen during office hours. They already have a certain system, like Sophie's in touch with Darren Gannett.
Right.
Sophie would like it to be a little bit better as well, but there are limitations there. So if there's gonna be some kind of persuading or improvement, it would probably be through the Ferry Advisory
Okay.
Committee, so communications isn't gonna do anything more about it.
All right, and as Susanna said, it's an item
Yeah,
all the time.
Okay.
so,
Number one, then meet the commuter water taxis to share information about service. Oh, right. So Ashley, working for her, she was on the BC, on the transit team, she was going to meet various people. So, I mean, that's not for us to do, but,
which is noted.
yeah, okay.
Yes.
Share links regarding the need for IT and stakeholders through regular communication channels. What's that, Emma?
I think this got rolled in with some of the ones following, but essentially it was to share that link for the beta user sign
Right.
up link,
Okay,
which did come through.
okay.
Yeah, and
So-
it's being pushed out in the communications this week.
Oh, okay, good.
yeah, I saw.
Okay, so that would be send new links to Emma for SurveyMonkey. What was that about? That was for, again, the same thing.
I
That's
think
all.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it was on a different survey collection, but they changed it to SurveyMonkey so they could figure out more information of where people were sending the information from. Do you remember they had already done the survey, but that she said she put it on SurveyMonkey? It was originally on Google survey.
Oh, well, we don't need to know, it's done.
I
I
remember.
think it's done, yeah. And SurveyMonkey is not stored in Canada either, so I don't know
Yeah,
where she was going with that.
Okay. And then someone to do tech support, that went out, you were just saying, yes. Share the survey and super user beta testers, web links with your networks.
we should do more of that now.
Okay, should I leave that on, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, that one.
And copy regarding the need for super testers to Emma. Did Ashley do that for you?
Yes,
Okay, good.
that's what I meant.
That's what the whole-
As we rolled out, yeah.
Yeah. And then the job description, that was the next one. Victoria, that's on the agenda for your meeting on, our meeting on Thursday, Suzanne, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Post summary of the VinTap discussion, yes, that was
Yes,
done,
that was
Susanna
done.
did that. Confirm ferry loading cutoff time, yes, Susanna
Yes,
did
that was
that
done.
too. Ask BC Ferries to define on time, oh. What about?
Well, I haven't asked them because I know what they'll say. Their on-time performance is in 10 minutes.
10 minutes,
Within
yeah.
10 minutes of the departure
Right.
time,
Which,
which they use across the system, which,
Yeah.
you know, is stupid. We can bring it up with them again.
but they won't.
But I think it's unlikely that they'll budge.
Yeah, I agree. Then Scott and James were writing something about the letter to Translink.
You want to update where the next steps are for that?
Yeah, so Scott, thank you. You're quick on that. You drafted a letter. James had a couple additional comments.
Yep.
I wanted actually to run it through staff.
Okay.
Just to make sure we're meeting any requirements for communications to
Okay.
external agencies.
Sure.
Put it under the BIM letterhead, and then we'll send it out for a full
Sure.
review.
Okay. And we were all supposed to review the transportation plan and select items that would be eligible for grant funding. I didn't.
It's
but
been a bit busy.
It's been a bit busy. Yeah. Okay, all right.
You can
So-
leave that one on.
We
Or
could leave
that.
that one on. Yeah. I mean, that's something we all need to be alert. I'm not particularly alert on that. I'm not into the networks, I guess I should be. Okay. So our agenda then, moving on ahead, we've really got a whole BC Ferries update, and obviously a whole lot happened since our last meeting. And we can have a bit of a conversation about that. And then Emma's got an update on a couple of things. Then we've got our transportation work plan, and that's pretty important. And then I've got a council update. Sue Ellen, I'm not sure if you've got anything on that?
Yeah.
You do? Okay.
Three,
And
well, tiny things, but.
tiny things, okay. And I'm just gonna raise that Cardina parking.
Are we ready for comments?
What's that?
Public comments, or because we went to action items?
Yeah, oh, sorry, I never asked if there were public comments. Tyler, do you have any comments? Okay.
Just checking. No, it's a good point.
Tyler, you have to watch and see what we do. How efficient and useful we are.
Okay. I was in that position 6
Yeah,
months ago.
right.
And look what
And
happened.
I'm here.
Yeah. And it's just really a barrel of laughs, it flows, fun, and lots of good work. Okay, so let's get to Ferry Advisory Committee update. Susanna, I mean, we've got sort of 20 minutes allocated here. I think,
I probably don't need that.
yeah,
I'd like to draw attention to 5 items in the notes from the last meeting.
okay,
I'm not going to say anything about the passenger overloads because, well, it's temporarily dealt with, and
Yeah.
we're going to be exploring ways with BC Ferries at our meeting, our twice annual meeting,
yeah,
with them on Thursday, which I'm very pleased that you're going to be able to attend, David. That's great. I want you to note item 4 that we had several proposals for priority loading for Bowen Island residents, and the FAC declined to pursue this. So impractical on many counts.
yeah.
But, you know, if need be, at some point I can elaborate on that. But some people are pushing for that and will push for that. Item 5, medical priority loading. We do have this, but it's my belief that it's not well enough known about. So I want to try and work with Caring Circle to publicise it better. And Alison has volunteered to draft a template letter which we can give to BC Ferries, or give to patients that they can, give to patients that they can present to their doctor so that they can get the necessary documentation.
I think we already have that, so she may be bringing that
Okay.
forward.
Yeah. So if you have the conversation with Caring Circle, probably it might just need to be publicized better. If that's
We
Yeah.
have a system, just no one knows about it. It's
No one
kind
knows
of
about
hard to get your head
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, but you know the letter I mean, eh, Steph?
The letter
Yeah, well,
to forward.
I'll find it, what I'm thinking of, and send it to you, Suzanne.
Okay, that's great. And the thing that comes up is if you're hospitalised and then they suddenly release you, and you haven't had time to get a letter, you need something at the hospital that you
Oh,
can
right,
present.
right. That's what we talked about last time, that's right, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, number 6 is a new thing that had come to me from a particular member of the public, and it raises a very good issue that has never been made provision for. So people who are travelling disabled, with disabled travellers, there is a procedure at Horseshoe Bay. It's not perfect, but there is one.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything on the Bowen side. If you need to be near the elevator to get a wheelchair or a mobility aid out of your car, you need to be loaded quite early, but not at the very front, so that you'll be by the elevator because of where the elevator is on the Queen of Capilano, right?
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be or the FAC thinks there needs to be a reserved hatched area near the front of the lineup. So we thought we would pursue this with BC Ferries on Thursday. This doesn't apply to many people, but for the people it applies to, this is a person with a disabled child we're talking about, who, if she's not marshaled in the right place on the Queen of Capilano, she can't get out of her car and take her kids upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's
And I know it's
often,
not a long ferry ride, but for kids, you know, kids
Yeah.
might need to use the washroom. So I think this is very good, and we haven't ever thought of it, so I'll report back on that.
yeah.
Low-cost experience cards, the next item, number 7. I'm going to pursue, Gabriela has done this, they found a way of doing this, working with their food bank and their co-op store, and I need to, this is just a sort of heads up, I need to pursue this with Steve Earle, who's the chair of the Gabriela FAC, to get a bit more detail and bring back some proposals to the FAC on Bowen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the last thing I'd like to bring up is committee membership, number 9. And I've been a bit dismayed at attendance at the FAC. It's not really clear, it's a subcommittee of BIMTAC, and it's not really clear to me whether the quorum rules apply as a subcommittee. And that isn't necessarily solved by making the committee larger, but most of the other FACs in the system are about 9 people, and some of them serve much smaller communities than ours, some of them serve larger communities. I would quite like to see us matching, or coming close to matching the other FACs, and not least because when issues come up, like the recent one, there would be more people to spread the work around, because it's, certainly when you have a little crisis, like in the last 2 weeks, it's a lot of time if it all falls on the shoulders of 1 or 2 people.
Yeah.
And also there's the whole issue of diversity, of getting a good cross-section of the community.
Yeah.
And I do know that BC Ferries has quite a careful procedure for appointing the other 12 FACs. Ours is exceptional in that it is a subcommittee of BIMTAC. But I actually would like to see, I'd like to make a proposal to BIMTAC that the process for appointing people to the FAC be a little bit more formalized, with
Okay.
the same kind of form that people have to fill in as they have to fill in for a regular council committee. So I wonder what you think of that.
I think, yeah, it seems like a good idea. I mean, we're in, right now, we just had an election, and so we're going to have new committee membership. We have, council members, or sort of members of several committees who are now on council and will be, moving
Yeah.
around. So we're going to be needing to send out some notices about committee vacancies and looking for people. And so I think we could include that. But in the past, I guess it was really informal. How did we do it, Susanna?
It's incredibly informal.
Yeah.
I think, if I can chime in here, I think what we did last term is council looked at all the committees, and I
Yeah.
think maybe Steph and Kathy might be pulling together some ideas about
Yeah.
the suggestions, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were, I haven't asked them.
Yeah.
But I've got some ideas about moving
Okay.
committees around as possible, they all do. One thing that comes to mind, so I like the idea of formalizing it a bit more so that
Yeah.
people know.
Yeah.
The second thing is that the Ferry Advisory Committee is actually a committee of BC Ferries, isn't it?
Yes.
And
Yes.
a
They're
subcommittee.
unrelated. Aren't they unrelated?
No, well, it is.
This council has nothing to do with it.
It is a BC
Well,
Ferries
they have a
official
process
committee.
for appointing the other 12 FACs,
Yeah.
where BC Ferries receives the paperwork on the individuals. And from what I understand from attending the annual meeting we have with BC Ferries is that in some FACs there have been some very unhelpful members of the public have been recruited, and they can actually come in and help when a chair of an FAC is having some problems with people who are just, there to put a spoke in the works instead of to work constructively. So it's very extraordinary that they made this special arrangement with Bowen, and I'm not saying it's a bad arrangement, but I think it would be better if it was. It's actually an important committee when things go wrong. When everything's
important.
okay, it's not important at all.
Yeah.
And as we've seen in the last few weeks, there's been a lot of stress from the public
Yeah.
that's been directed at BC Ferries, and some of it has been directed at the FAC. And I think it would just make the mandate a bit clearer if it was a little bit more formal.
Yeah.
But technically it is a committee of BC Ferries.
Yeah.
See, I wonder, I think at the beginning of the last term, we kind of went through how to have subcommittees, and there's kind of a general, and Steph could tell me more, but there's a general kind of way to keep the amount of admin down, because there's only so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
capacity
Yeah.
we've got, but maybe this could be revisited, since
There will be some criteria articulated in writing in the upgrade of the handbook regarding subcommittees.
yeah,
That is clear to me.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
This is less clear because of the relationship with
With
BC
BC
Ferries.
yeah.
So,
But-
does it have to be a subcommittee of BIMTAC? Can't she just be coming in as, like on other committees we'll have, for example, on the EDC, we have people from BIAC who's sitting on the committee and we're doing reporting in
Yeah,
from there, or on Heritage Commission, we have people from Museum and Archives, they're members of the
Yeah.
council, committee of council, but they're wearing the hat of representing a different organization.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
this could look
I-
like that, but that's not a subcommittee of BIMTAC, it's just we've got somebody who's.
yeah, I think it's a good time to revisit this, because it might actually be, Susanna, better for your relationship with BC Ferries if you were actually BC Ferries subcommittee.
Well, I actually wouldn't oppose that. I wasn't especially suggesting that, but I wouldn't oppose it. It does seem a bit odd for 1 out of 13 to be treated
Yeah,
differently.
I don't
What I
think-
could do is I could get from Darren Gannett, it must be easily available, it's probably on the web, their kind of blurb about the rules of how they appoint to FACs and what the procedural stuff is, and I could share that with BIMTAC.
Okay, that would
How would
be
that be as an action item?
That would be
Love
useful to
that.
have a look at. But
That would be
there's a really critically important point here, is that we have a transportation plan, and this committee is responsible for making recommendations and acting on the transportation plan, and our relationship with BC Ferries and what BC Ferries does is one of the most important parts of our transportation plan. So it can't be we can't have an FAC that's acting, looking for different goals than
No,
what
no,
we have
no.
here.
no,
So-
but we could revise the BIMTAC terms of reference to include specific reference to the FAC
Absolutely.
membership
I-
being part of it if needed.
Yes.
So I think we need to do a little review.
Yeah, can we,
Yeah.
you think about it, maybe you send the information from Darren and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, good points, and I think.
Thank you, and yes, I think it is a good moment to visit this. Thank you,
Yeah.
that was everything I had.
Okay.
I don't know if there are any questions from anybody.
I have one point I just want to raise,
Sure.
and that is to do with so we had a nice solution to the whole issue of the 7:30 ferry, but it's a 1 month solution, and they're going to be collecting data, apparently, that's what they told us. But we need data too, we need good data, and I'm not sure how to get it. Like, we have data, Scott's given us some data on the number of students, but even that is not a full list, because there's some who are not on the bus, so there might be more. But it's, from sort of just a quick sketch of the numbers, it's very easy for us to get to 395. And I certainly don't want them to be saying at the end of it, well, there were only 3 times when you got over that number, so therefore we're going to go back to B. or something. So anyway, I'm sort of wondering about how we can get our own data so that when we have a meeting with them in a month, or whatever the situation is in a month, we got something to stand on, or something to base our opinion on. And I mean, one interesting thing would be to do our own work, counting how many people per car, roughly, because we know that, Allison could tell us how many cars are on the ferry, it's like 100 or 105, something like that, I don't know how many it is. But, you know, if we knew what the multiplier was, then the normal multiplier, the 1.1 or 1.15 or 2 or whatever it is, you know, that's another 120, 130 people. Going with the students, that's, you know, we've only got then 40 or 50 people left before we hit the capacity. So that's
And-
that I'd like to find out.
And just, if I can chime in,
Yeah.
over the past couple of years, BIMTAC has been encouraging ride sharing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we can't assume that people have been ignoring us completely,
Yeah.
and that all those cars are, that the number is the same.
Yeah.
So,
So I don't know how to get this data because it could be somebody just volunteering to stand by there for a few days and do our own count.
David, do you think this is critical to the 7:30 in particular?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the 7:30. That's the
I
one.
agree.
That's the one where we're getting overloads, or where they were kicking passengers off. So
2 points. One of them is that it's pretty dark still at 7:30 and it's getting darker.
it's getting darker.
The second point is that this is like an ideal, to me, it sounds like an ideal sort of summer student project. Or
Yeah.
something that we could collaborate with BC Ferries on, or something like that.
The trouble is it's urgent, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
guess
You know,
what
it'll
I'm
be at the
saying.
end of November.
The
and
data that we're gonna get will,
Yeah.
like, we've had 2 Pro D days and.
Already. Maybe in our conversation with BC Ferries on Thursday, we can ask them about the data. Because they'll just get their counts of loads, you know, just like we've seen on the sheet with the yellow highlights.
Yeah.
And,
The cars.
yeah, well, who knows what that is based on, but Scott?
Yeah, I'm just thinking with 7:30, and if we could have 2 people, and we have lots of people who've emailed with, you know, strong concerns about missing it, who might be volunteers who take the 7:30, and one person stands on the stairs or at the top of the stairs at the
Yeah.
first way, another person stands on the top of the second way, and after 5 minutes of standing there, when all the upstairs passengers have loaded, they need to be first on the boat. Then they come downstairs, and for the next 15 minutes, one person takes one side, another person takes
Yeah.
another side. And
It's a great
literally,
idea.
that's when you
Goes down
look
to the
into
cars.
every
Yeah.
car, and you might have to kind of, it's hard to see,
Yeah.
but honestly, I think it's gonna take 20 minutes just to find out who's on the ferry, because the little clicker,
Yeah.
it would be a miracle if those guys could get 200 people coming on within 5 minutes of pedestrians,
Yeah.
and there's no way that you can do it with the cars. You might be able to do it with who's in the front seat, there's no way you can do it with who's
Can't
in
see.
the back seat.
Yeah.
That's what I
And we don't really have any reliable numbers. David and I were chatting, just the school district numbers are the people who sign up to take the bus, and people don't always sign up to take the bus. Lots of people drive it every day, so the numbers that we have are good baseline numbers, which seem high, but doing a ferry audit 5 days, like for 5 days, because it might be different on Monday compared to Friday.
Yes.
And maybe just the idea of reaching out to the individuals who have emailed with their concerns,
So on, yeah.
if they're willing to help out and collect the data.
They'll be on those ferries.
Yeah.
Okay, I will,
So then what's at the top of the stairs, then the people come up, they're gonna run down and make sure they check the cars before these guys come back down. They get
Yeah.
this idea.
yeah, is
Yeah.
we get some volunteers, and we have a meeting with the volunteers to discuss, you know, we give them that idea, and they said, well, actually, it'd be better if we, or
Yeah,
whatever.
there might be,
They might have better
First,
ideas or
yeah.
something, but we need to get a few volunteers if they want to do it. And they'd have to be people who are regular riders on the 7:30, like Trish might be, Trish check it out. Yeah.
I think maybe Trish is at home, or she drops off kids and then goes home and she's watching that ferry,
Oh,
I'm
that
not
was
sure.
good.
But I wondered if we wanted to use those clickers. I don't know if anybody's used them, but they actually work really well,
Do they?
because you don't have to remember. You just, every
Right.
time you see somebody, you click it.
That's a good idea.
And then you're using the same technology, but
Yeah.
I don't know how much of this meeting we want to do into that. Somebody
Okay,
could-
well, what I will do is, I think I've got all, I don't know, I have to check all the emails, about 4 or 5 people who emailed us. Well,
They're
It's
in
all
here,
in here.
they're in here.
I think we're gonna just be mindful of the camera when we're using names.
I won't use
Right.
names. You're right, good point, thank you. Okay, I will go through the emails.
It's up there for plans.
Yeah, I'll go through the emails and share with everybody my idea of just a letter I would send to them.
Sure.
And see what you all think.
Great.
Yeah, because I
Very
think,
good. I suppose.
what my point there that I was trying to make is that different people have different ways that they could give us data.
Exactly, yeah.
And people who can see the ferry
Yeah.
well, that's also useful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I'll do that. Okay, good, thanks.
Compare it to the BC Ferries data later.
Well, yeah, then we can feel confident about our data.
Does that sound like it's useful to you, Susanna?
Very, very useful. Yes, I'm delighted.
Okay. So now I think we're done on 5.1, is that correct? Anything else?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good, thanks. So 5.2, Emma? Path to Village Square, your transportation workshop, and the shuttle update. And not on here is anything about the multi-path.
Sure.
Okay, go.
I made a little presentation I dropped in the common drive.
Okay.
By the way, Tyler, Emma's our
Yeah,
engineer and planner.
engineer and planner.
Transportation.
Yeah. She's our transportation planner who happens to be an engineer.
It used to be.
I didn't
Yeah.
get that.
Oh, you did. Thank you. So essentially, I just made a little presentation to give some visuals for the update, everything on this list
Yeah,
in the
okay.
agenda. While waiting for this to load, I guess, the path to Village Square, I think everyone's familiar with
Yeah.
that one.
Right there, yeah.
Just the bottom of those steps where
Yeah.
the townhouses are.
Yeah. You
Takes
use
you
it
down to
often?
yeah,
For the running, yeah.
yeah, nice and steep.
Nice and steep, good exercise.
Yeah, so I'm actually not sure why this popped up on the TAC agenda, but it did come up at Parks and Trails. There was concern around the safety of this trail, and Public Works had suggested closing the trail. One, because of the cost to improve safety, and second, they were not in agreement with putting structures on top of a utility easement. So we have utility pipelines running below that trail.
And that water line.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and they don't want to put stairs, which are currently on there, on top of the infrastructure there.
What was the safety issue?
One of the steps had deteriorated, the wooden steps, and some rebar was poking out.
And the
It's a-
gravel.
it's a rebar, the
And
gravel
there's
slippery.
gravel everywhere, that's a constant issue. So I think the conclusion from that discussion with Public Works is that they will not close the trail and that they will take steps to improve the safety without building new steps.
Good. Sounds fine to me.
Good enough for an
That's great.
update?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That's all the details I have.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. That's a picture of the trail.
Yeah.
All right. So the regional transportation strategy is a really important TransLink policy document. It governs how they manage transportation in the region over the next 30 years. And they do regular updates to this strategy. The last one was in 2013, and they've just initiated the process to do their next update for 2020. Yeah, staff was invited to the first workshop as a representative. They had people from all the local governments, transportation providers, technology, industry, just covering actually quite a wide cross-section of stakeholders. And I'm going to give a very quick overview of what we did at the workshop, just to introduce you to the whole process. This was last week. They introduced their baseline scenario, which they created based on 2016 census data to make projections, give us an idea of what the region will look like 30 years from now. And then they introduced a pretty big list of external forces. So these were things that they considered very likely to happen within the next 30 years and will have a significant impact on that baseline scenario that they had projected. And the main difference here, these external forces, even though they believe they're likely to happen, there's a certain degree of uncertainty as to how the impacts will look. So that was the topic of discussion for the workshop. Exactly how certain are we with regards to how these different things are going to play out over the next 30 years. And This is a summary of the results, very hard to read, I know, but just to give you a really quick idea, these 19 different external forces, we rank them based on the impact, which is the vertical scale, so the higher impact.
Right.
And then certainty is your horizontal scale,
Okay.
so low certainty is here, high certainty is here.
Okay, so the top right corner are the things we should really worry about.
Well, the top right, actually, yes, we should worry about all these things, they're all likely to happen. But the top right are things that would have high impact, and we're pretty certain what it's gonna look like.
Right.
For example, this one's aging population. We
Okay.
know our population is aging
Right.
in this region, and what it looks like we're gonna get old. We need more housing, more
Yeah,
accessible transportation,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So those type of things are going to be rolled into the baseline scenario, meaning every scenario that's going to be considered will include those forces. The ones that are interesting are on the low end of certainty. So high impact, but we're not sure exactly how it's gonna look. They're gonna use that information to create different scenarios
right.
using the ones that were identified in this quadrant here. So I think this one is like earthquakes,
Okay.
high impact, but it could do many different things. So the next steps they're gonna do, they're gonna take this feedback, use it to build a bunch of different scenarios, and then we're gonna look at the implications of the actions that we'll need to take over the next 30 years, and then take all of that and update the RTS in 2020. So the next steps are happening in 2019. Like I said, this is very beginnings of this process. I just wanted to introduce it to TAC because this strategy is so important. It really shapes the type of investment that we'll see from
Sure.
TransLink. More importantly, how they're going to evaluate our funding applications. So we just want to make sure that our small little community here, that our transportation needs are considered in this update process. So I'll keep you guys posted as we go along.
I'd love to have a copy of this cool little diagram.
This will be on a revised agenda.
Okay.
the
Okay,
presentation.
Interesting, I mean, this is really interesting analysis. And BC Ferries, some different version of a process. We're looking at, okay, we're trying to design a 50-year terminal. And they talked about some of these kinds of things, about shared mobility and, autonomous vehicles and so on. But I don't know if they actually went through a process like this, where they actually sort of,
So this actually is way more comprehensive than, say, the previous RTS update, because they partnered up with Metro Vancouver for the regional growth strategy
Right.
update as well. So
Yeah.
we're not just looking at transportation, we're also looking at land
Right.
use planning and growth strategies.
right.
Yeah, I was wondering, yeah.
So that was the RTS.
Good.
Next item is our on-demand pilot project. And very quick update, this week, as we mentioned, the ads for our beta user group is going out. Next week, they plan to start training for this program, this app. And then the week after that, they're going to start the beta test phase, and I think they're only running it for a week, 2 max. And they're hoping to launch the phase 1 by the end of November.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're just really condensing their schedule.
So they actually will have devices on the buses which will be able to say where they are.
Yeah, next week, apparently, or maybe they're outfitting them this week, I don't know, but yeah, very, very soon. And as part of the launch for phase 1, they're going to do a bunch of promotion, and part of that will be sending a team to ride the ferry for a number of sailings. And these are the proposed sailings they've sent me, and they wanted feedback from TAC. These are all Wednesdays. I don't know why they picked Wednesdays. This is a Thursday. Other than that, they're all Wednesdays, and they're all afternoon sailings with the exception of this one, which is in the morning. I've told them generally we're busiest on Friday mornings. I don't know if my data's old, but does anyone have any feedback on these suggested sailings?
What's the little asterisk beside?
Oh,
what it
that's
says?
their optional one, depending how many people they get, the first 3.
Well, they're missing I'm looking at the morning ones that are leaving here. The 6:30 to 8:30. Yeah, you're getting basically the commuters, the work commuters. But it's the other ones that are potentially more flexible times and flexible runs for the 9:30, 10:30, and so on. But I don't know. They're missing those, and they're getting kind of the same gang on the way back.
Are they giving the same people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
So I try to make some, try to get some different runs. Like the 3:30 coming back, that is,
The kids,
yeah, it's kids, that's right,
7:30 is the kids going there.
yeah.
yeah, but those are the main fair users.
Those are the main fair users, those are the big,
They are.
you're right, those are the main fair users.
So, I mean, for their purposes, they're trying to target the highest potential users of
Okay.
this new.
In that case, they've got the
highway.
right ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Do they? Those are the commuters,
Yeah,
but would the highest users of the diverted routes driving on the little bus around
On-demand transit.
on demand, is that gonna be all in, it looks like they're
They'll not be the
putting,
commuters, right? They'll be definitely not the commuters.
that's what I was wondering.
yeah, yeah.
Is, because those are also the slightly tighter, right? There's less
Yeah.
diversion opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
It's true.
I just wonder if they wanted to do some of those in the middle of the day and catch people that are on island, getting around on island.
Yeah, so maybe they're optional December 5th, instead of repeating something that they've already done, go and do some of the middle of, more of the middle of the day ones.
And I think they're also concerned about maximizing exposure, and they're thinking
Sure,
they
Yeah.
get the most riders
yeah.
beginning and end of day. But I'll send those comments.
Well, and if they're doing it on the ferry, those are definitely the busiest
Yeah,
ones, but they're the most regular commuters and.
Mhm. So I believe they're planning to do an info session at Cove Commons as well.
Mhm.
And they're doing the bus wrap, so the buses will be all different colored.
Oh, really?
And they're trying to get a table at the Christmas craft fair, which has been completely booked out.
Yes, for months.
Yeah, so I have put in an extra request for them, and the committee's meeting tomorrow to decide if we'll let them walk around at least for some things. We'll see.
Or be outside the door or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
okay.
That's it for this
Okay,
project.
now Tyler, just for your information, so TransLink is using technology so that people could have an app where they're asking for the bus to deviate a little bit. The more they can deviate,
From the route.
yeah, from the route, the trickier it is to meet the ferry and so on, so there's all those kinds of issues that
Kind
have
of
to be tested out.
balancing.
Yeah.
So it's also a pilot for them because they've got some new machine learning kind of technology that I don't know if it's cow lines or what exactly it is, but anyway, they're using some ride sharing technology and training it up on Bowen using us because
Are you familiar with microtransit?
not yet.
Not really.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're essentially, it's a way to expand the service area without expanding your hours. So it's the same bus, same hours, but it's always empty and really. But if they are alerted to people actually wanting to use it, they're slightly off the route, then you could deviate the bus over to pick them up.
Right.
So basically, the beta testers are people, they want people to book a seat and get used to using it and make sure people are aware of it, get the feeling for what the regular route is, and then they want to start doing a little deviating.
So in the morning it's a bus, and midday it's half Uber.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, Uber hybrid, yeah.
Yeah.
Got the idea, and it'll have GPS on it.
See where it is, finally. Okay, moving on. The 2019 work plan, so this is
Yeah.
exactly the same process that we went over in the summer
Yeah.
in the 2018 work plan. Only we're going to do this one on time for the budget process. Again, this is just to identify what the priorities are, who is going to carry out the projects, what our budgets, estimated budgets are going to be, and bring that for discussion. Hopefully everyone's had.
Yeah, it was a nice report. Just trying to find it, page 30, I think.
32?
32. Right. Yes.
So I think the report, I attached a brief report with this, essentially just looking at what we had set out in the 2018 work plan. I think we did really good. I mean, there were 19 different elements in the 2018 work plan,
Yeah.
and we were on schedule for 15 of those, and we completed 7
Yeah.
of them. So essentially the blue and green, great. We had 3 out of the 19 elements that weren't on schedule. One was the commuter parking lot, which I don't think was really super high priority anyways. That was to discuss the expansion. We already have the commuter
Yeah.
lot, and this was just
Yeah.
to see if we wanted to make it bigger, so we can postpone that to next year. And then the two that were delayed were really not so much within our power. It was the pilot project that we just talked
Right.
about. TransLink had internal delays that delayed it
Mhm.
over half a year. And then the other project was the electric vehicle charging stations, which we've already purchased,
Yeah.
so they're on.
Oh, great.
Yeah, they're on the
Yeah.
way, and we just have to install them.
Yeah, have we decided, I saw some note about council still, there's some question about
Location?
where they would go? or location?
Yes.
Because you did some, oh,
I did some consultation.
Okay.
I think it needs a little bit more political direction.
Okay.
But yeah, we're almost there.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was 2018,
Yeah.
and I
Super.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
I will put together the evaluation report, the annual progress report as
Yep.
per the transportation plan, but I'm gonna start that in 2019. And before that, I think we need to do a little workshop to determine all the targets. Because we set out the metrics in the transportation plan, but we never actually established what our targets were.
Right.
So I think that'll be a
Yeah.
good exercise, and maybe have an open house and invite the community to
Yeah.
chime in.
I think that's a great idea, and it'll be a good thing for the new council to
Yeah.
get their minds around
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, so that'll be our first progress report for the transportation plan. Other than that, for 2019, we've carried over a lot of our ongoing elements, things like coordinating the schedules and working with our regional partners. But I've also added two more, and they're highlighted here. It's the cycling network and the pedestrian network. The transportation plan has an estimated budget of 5,000 and 25,000 respectively for these two elements.
Yeah.
And they're not for any one specific project. I don't know if anyone has a copy of the transportation plan.
Yeah, I was looking through and trying to figure out what we decided were the key.
So that's there's a proposed pedestrian network and proposed cycling network.
Yeah.
For
I
these
forget
two.
what page it's on, I was
Oh,
looking at it earlier, but I didn't.
36 and 37,
Okay.
And then the cycling one is on the following page.
following.
Yeah, so those highlight all the proposed possible improvements for pedestrian and cycling networks. But they cover the whole island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing is choosing.
Yeah, and priorities change every year, so we can go ahead and try and put this forward to council without identifying any project and just be like, give us some money.
To go back to pages.
I don't have a high level of confidence that they will. So I think if we can justify it with an actual project and why it's important, that would be a stronger ask. So that's why I'm bringing that to discussion tonight.
So that's the cycling, go up to scroll up on the screen and it'll be the, there we go, pedestrian network. So, I'm sorry, I was sort of, my mind went to
Yeah,
help figure
she's
this
saying,
out for a sec.
she's
So we
saying,
need to find
what
which
are the
ones.
specific ones, because if we bring it forward.
Right, we have to
generally-
have, we can't just say we want 25,000 bucks, we
Well,
need
we
to
can
say
try
what
it.
what we're gonna do. Yeah.
Emma says
What-
it's not hopeful.
No. So, I mean, the scale is pretty tiny here, I'm just sort of looking at it. I mean, if you're looking at the box, okay, scroll over to the
Feel
right.
free to come over if you want to
Yeah.
see.
This is it right here.
Okay.
So this one, I remember when we were up on top, it was,
There was an online
Sorry.
copy of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking for it.
More somewhat familiar.
Yeah.
yeah, this one right here. From, this is for all
That
folks
goes
who
into
live in this area.
Bowfest
here.
Field
No,
from Dorman?
from Dorman, yeah, going
Goes
down
in-
the
goes
steep
into-
hill from Dorman Road.
Yeah.
So people can get to Bowfest Field and the trail across it and get to the cove or get to,
Something more accessible than the rocky.
it's
road.
really steep right at the top.
Mhm.
Like some stairs or something like that. Do you know where it needs to go
Yeah.
from? We walked it when we were up in that area, I think, or I remember walking it anyway. It's right on Dorman Road, there's actually a trail there right now. But it
By the
wouldn't-
mailboxes?
No, it's right at the corner, it's maybe 50 meters past.
Yeah, I think I know which one it is. I think we
You
went
just
to
drop
Parks and
straight
Trails.
down.
It goes all the way up to the top of Kate's Hill, right?
No.
Oh,
Dorman Road,
yeah.
where you turn and hit Taylor or Hummingbird, was it?
Hummingbird.
Oh,
yeah.
up higher up
Up
there.
higher.
Oh, right, go
And you-
okay,
it's
It's
right.
right
from the-
before you hit that intersection.
So if you're going across the field, they Crippen Park,
Yeah.
playing field, or whatever,
The
cricket field, Pheasant Field, you walk across and then you go into the woods and then you go straight up. It's that trail
This is
there.
Old Fest here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a really good trail all the way until it gets to the top. And so all those, and people did mention when we were talking in that area, they wanted to be able to walk to the cove, but it was too tricky.
So that part's in Crippen Park, isn't it?
I don't know, good question.
I think that's in Crippen, and I think that might be something we could do a partnership with or something. Let's find out, if you could ask them, well, let's confirm that it's in Crippen Park, the part we're talking about. And
Part of it might
secondly,
be the road allowance, who knows, like,
yeah, and secondly, I'm not sure, like if it's the part I'm thinking about, it's just really steep, and
Yeah.
where are the property lines?
Yeah.
Or could they, it's possible they could bring it across at a slant,
Yeah.
if it's the part I'm thinking about,
Yeah.
but then it wouldn't line up with the next part. So I think maybe we need a walkabout,
Yeah,
should
we
we
need
go
to walk
there
around. Yeah, we
and
need-
have a look at
Good
it?
idea.
yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so we need
and
to
then if we could
research,
get a park.
research
person
whether
to
it's
come
in
with us.
Crippen or not,
Yeah.
to start off with, and then a walkabout.
Okay, I think that's a great candidate, and I think that is in that ballpark for that budget. I would say we bring it, so this work plan needs to go to council soon, this
Yeah.
new council, because we're also starting the budgeting soon. So any money requests need to go in within the next month, and we might not be meeting in November. So, if you guys are okay with pursuing this, I say
Well,
we'll.
let's hear if
I,
anyone else has some other options, I mean, I just.
Yeah, I think we should find another option, because that's a park trail in a park, and it's possible we can't do anything with it at all.
Yeah.
It's also possible that there's other things happening around that. So I just want to think about another one. So looking at the, sorry, this one easier to see. So we've had people asking about this one? Is that the reason that we're looking at that?
Yeah, when we were up there, we went up and met with that community, and that was one thing
Oh.
they raised.
Yeah,
As
the other one.
candidates, you did?
This,
No,
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 this
no.
network came out of the engagement
The
process.
engagement
Oh,
process.
right,
Mhm.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I see some other ones down west here around, oh no, that's,
This is one
That's
that's looked
private
at a
property.
little
yeah,
bit.
it's private property, yeah.
This one we've looked at a little bit with Parks and Trails, it's more of a recreational. thing,
Yeah.
Right?
They also
Yeah.
recommended, they said they wanted it when we met down there at
Yeah,
golf course.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some
That
people
one's gonna be
already take
expensive.
it, they go to Seymour Bay, you know.
Yeah, it's not very well marked
Yeah.
or safe.
David,
Yeah,
I can't see the map, obviously,
Oh,
but are there any
it's
trails along Miller Road? I always thought there was some sort of trails that people would take when they're walking to the ferry from sort of by the Legion that go off the road. Are there any of those trails candidates for this?
I don't know if there are any. Tyler, do you know, are there any on there?
Most people are walking along the road.
Yeah.
Seven Hills came up again recently, but I think it was a candidates meeting, it was a candidates meeting. But that area along Seven Hills, I don't see it down as a,
I think it's highlighted for a footpath.
yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one that, I mean, over my years on different committees, and even on the Bowen Island Conservancy, because it was a charity and people knew we could accept donations,
Yeah.
people would, and they knew we got involved in trail things. I received phone calls like 15 years ago from people saying, listen, I had a close call with a pedestrian, I was driving, I feel terrible, is there a fund I want to contribute to? So
I certainly think that road, that path up Seven Hills, I mean, it's,
Seven Hills.
at night, it's just really dangerous.
Because there's a little bit of a trail that's inconsistent here and there, and it's,
Is there road allowance that,
that's the tricky part, is the road allowance itself isn't consistent, like with all the way
Yeah.
up.
as usual?
What I find as a walker is I start on one side and then I cross over because there's a curve and you can't see, and then I have to cross again. And I personally, from a safety point of view, I think, because people also walk down there with strollers, and there's kids that live up in there, in those areas and stuff, I think that might be a priority.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, so
And,
for this budgeted amount of roughly 25,000, we can start at least looking at like technical investigative work,
Yeah.
getting surveys and some
Yeah,
preliminary.
where
engineering
would be the best places to, yeah. I think
Okay.
that would be my,
Yeah, Scott?
I have the same thoughts.
Yeah.
Scarborough, tons of families there. It's
Yeah.
a dangerous area. It's also walkable to the cove, whereas a lot of the areas on here are more
Yeah.
recreational, it seems, than transportation. So
Yeah.
connecting to the already existing path that goes along Miller Road is really good.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly where it is, but just there's tons of people. Every time I drive out Seven Hills, and I do it often, and I bike up there often as well, there's always somebody walking
Yeah.
Mhm.
up
Yeah.
in that area, and
And
there's
because
really
of that
limited
grade,
shoulder.
some people were going quite fast.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's also the trickiest one, because it's got well, it's not the trickiest, there's lots of places that have
Lots of
slopes, but
places.
it's one that people use year-round, I guess, maybe that's
Yeah.
the point, including in the dark. Because
Yeah, I
people
agree.
commute, and, or they walk regularly on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
So that would be my proposal.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, we're talking about a multi-use path going across, we have the main road of the island, but there's a whole lot of people who live on that side. And I really feel badly that that's a really dangerous little stretch.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'll amend this to identify that section
Okay,
uh,
perfect.
for improvement.
yeah.
And I'll just keep it as a staff action item to check with Crippen regarding a possible future
Yeah,
Great, okay.
connection.
So now we go to the cycling one.
Great.
We just got 5,000 for this, so what do you do for 5,000 bucks for cycling?
You could put in a couple stencils on the road. Or
Can
a
you
bike
move
rack.
this up to the
One bike rack.
pedestrian, to the cycling one?
Next one, scroll on down.
Yeah.
There it is.
I have a question. I ride my bike around, and like you do, and but I ride it to get around. So the bike racks are all kind of hidden. I wondered if one of them is behind the library, another one is in front of the not the credit union, in front of the cash machine, beside
That's right, in
the
front of the
general
cash
store.
Yep.
And so it's kind of tucked in behind the hedge there a little bit.
That was a requirement to
Is it?
reduce parking, so they can't take it away.
No, and, but I don't want to take it away. I wondered if we wanted to have more of them, and so that they were more obvious.
Okay, so the green dots are actually all proposed bike parking locations.
Mhm.
Oh, Susanna, there's some down your way.
Mount Gardner?
Yeah.
What's that?
There's some down Mount Gardner.
Yeah.
Oh, are there?
Yep.
Mhm.
Oh, at the parking lot of the picnic area?
Yes, one right at the picnic
Yeah.
area, and another one kind of at the top of the other one will be at the beginning of Hiker's Trail.
Oh, awesome. Great.
So for 5,000, we could probably get 2
Yeah.
bike racks,
I was-
if that's something you want
Because
to
it
chip
was,
away at.
because it was a small amount of money, and because we're thinking about electric car charging stations, I thought it might be a good idea to also put up some bike stations, so that we're balancing it. So it's not all about cars,
Yeah.
and so that we're emphasizing the active side as well.
And do we
So,
not have one at Crippen Park? It seems absurd that we wouldn't park again.
I think the whole orchard is getting redeveloped, and I don't know, why are we thinking?
Right at Killarney Lake is what I meant to say. At Killarney Lake, that's where that dot is, right there, right at the beginning of Killarney Lake. It seems obvious we should have a bike rack there, but if it's in the park,
I think that's another one of those collaborative park ones, maybe, that,
see it's on that dot right at the bottom of Killarney Lake.
this one, number 11?
No, that's at Hiker's Trail, and so the one
Clardy Lake.
down at the bottom, that one there, that'll be right at the picnic.
There are picnic tables there.
Yeah, they're picnic tables. Yeah.
So if you want to highlight a couple potential sites
Yeah,
that to pursue.
I was thinking about it in the code, visual,
Yeah.
like if we're gonna put in,
Mhm.
or maybe it depends a little bit on where the electric bikes go, but my point is exemplify, like make
Yeah.
things visible, and if there are some places on municipal land in the code, like what is this one, 7, library, there's one bike rack there, but it's back, right? It depends on the,
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I guess we do have the whole bike barn thing happening.
Yeah,
But
right
that's
now.
kind
Yeah.
of
That's
for
a-
commuters,
It's a
right?
commuter.
There's funding to do maps to show where the bike parking is. We just don't have very many. It doesn't justify making a map.
No, let's get some,
Yeah, I think if
That's
we had
good.
more things to put on the map,
Yeah.
or for people to notice. I think there is bike rack at, there's one at the Orchard, what Bread and Potato is. What's that called? That little mall, mini mall,
Village Square.
Village Square.
Is
So
there
I
one
can
there?
never remember.
Yeah, there is,
Yeah,
Where is
yeah,
it?
right in front of the ready,
right in front of the,
Okay.
and
Think-
pharmacy,
yeah,
between the ready and pharmacy.
yeah,
that little-
where the little tree,
Oh, right.
tie your dog.
I always just leave my bike sitting right there without having to put it in.
But you know, I can't really see it clearly here on the map
Oh,
too.
it's clearer in the book, in the print one, I think.
Yeah.
Just my thoughts on the bike parking is that most people don't lock their bike, and the only
Yeah.
reason you really need a bike rack is to get out of someone's way if you're in a busy area,
Yeah.
right in front of the ready where you can
Yeah.
walk your bike out of the way. But like if you're going to Crooked Park and you're a family coming over and you really feel the need to lock your bike, you just walk them together or find it. Like I don't think people are looking for this, and we just put in a bike rack at the school for $1,500. They're expensive.
Yeah.
I like the idea of some signage. I know we want a separate path, but it's gonna be a decade until that's fully put into place. Just some share the road signs, even though people aren't gonna look at that and all of a sudden be safer on bicycles, but it does put a stamp on Bowen Island that the roads are not just for cars, and right now I think there's a lot of, that's the mindset for a lot of people. Possibly attached to a 40-kilometer-an-hour sign on Adams Road and 40K, and then so people know and then share the road, so people are kind of identifying, slow down, there's bikes on the road. A couple, like 2 or 3 of those signs, kind of on.
Like a share the road, which has an icon of a
Bicycle.
cyclist or something.
And a cyclist, yeah.
And Public Works actually has some ready to go. They just put one up just past Mount Gardner.
Okay.
Because they widened the shoulder, it's actually a multi-use path width now, we just don't have proper signage. And then it disappears, it
Oh,
kind of
right.
just stops.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you were using it, if you're a bike, you'd have to shove onto the road.
Right.
So he stuck a sign up there.
Oh, right, I remember we
Sure.
talked about that, yeah.
Yeah.
One thing to think about with signs is that that's the previous council went through a process of trying to reduce the number of signs, because putting up signs is the easy, obvious thing to do. But there's already those kinds of up there for horses too,
Yeah, there are.
and it tends to start looking like our roads were
Right.
addressing signs. I like the idea of the paintings on the,
We could do
like some
sharrows.
decals or
Sharrows?
what are they called?
Sharrows?
Sharrows.
The bike marking with the
Yeah.
arrows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
One other thought is the bike path that we currently do
Yeah.
have, some of those signs could be moved. Like there's 2 signs where people have to decide to go on the left or the right
Yeah.
of the sign. And if
Yeah.
you go on the left, you're in the road. If you're on the right, there's not a lot of room for gravel. So just the cost of moving those signs over might be a little bit. There's a power pole there as well, which we're not gonna move.
Which we're not gonna.
But there's at least one sign that is in the way.
There's
So
several.
moving several, yeah,
There's
moving
several.
a few of those.
Every time I go by, like, why didn't we move the sign before we paved it?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think they should, it doesn't make any sense to have a bike path and then
These signs right
a
in
sign right in the
Be
middle.
blocking the bike path. with
Right in
signs.
the-
right in the middle of
Yeah.
the bike path.
So fine tuning on the,
So I'm not sure we're completely sure what our ideas are. We've got 3 different ideas. Getting rid of some of the signs that are in the middle of the bike path, putting up some signage around bikes, and also some bike racks.
the bike rack one was more about making it visible and having active transportation as well as the
Yeah.
electric charging the car sort of side of things. But
I know that when we cleaned up down at Ferry Terminal and we put up some proper bike racks, there were somebody filled, which was really neat, because we just had horrible concrete things that were designed to break your wheels.
yeah,
And when we got rid of those, suddenly the place was filled with bikes.
Yeah.
I can make a suggestion, the multi-use path
Yeah.
which includes that little bike lane section, does have funding for wayfinding, including signage and pavement markings and a little bit of art.
Yeah.
And we can expand on that by requesting this extra bit of money, and that'll give us a little bit more flexibility, I think, in how we want to spend it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, is to capitalize on that multi-use
Little bit
pathway,
more
that the cycling,
Yeah.
you know, getting that going, because these
Yeah.
are all fairly small bits of money
Yeah.
for.
But I certainly agree with taking those signs out of the middle of the path if we can.
So
You know the
I'll-
ones he means?
It's,
Yeah, I'll check with Public Works, because that'll be more of an operational thing.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense to do it before we paved.
it sure would.
So I will check to see if we could do that easily.
Yeah, it might not be.
Here's another idea, are those the big signs?
I forget what they're for something or other. I don't, can't
Because
remember.
So they're
sometimes,
not that big.
No.
I know what you're talking, they're like on the little skinny
They're on those metal-
posts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just to go back to the share the road signs, I personally don't find there are too many signs on Bowden.
Mhm.
And even if there was, I know people are too busy driving off the ferry, but there needs to be some sort of presence for cycling beyond the path that we have. So I love the idea of attaching it to another sign, so we don't add on to
Yeah.
it. But I actually think there could be more 40 signs. Like, it's shocking that the speed limit on Bowen is 40. Even living here for 5 years, I'm still surprised that it's 40 everywhere. So I don't think it's a bad idea to have share the road, go 40 kilometers an hour, just a couple of those signs.
I totally support that.
Mhm.
okay, and I like the idea if we, I mean, we do have the one with the share the road with horses and so on, and it sort of describes, I forget, it's got some information on it. But to have something that's sort of dramatic, that shows, you know, nice and big, that shows a cyclist, and that somehow says, share the road with cyclists in some graphic way, that would attract people's attention, I think would be pretty useful, because some people aren't that good at sharing the road.
What do you guys think of the sharrows?
Of the what?
Pavement markings.
I don't think it's wiped away quite quickly if it's on the road. Just wasn't that the issue with the cross hatching, is that it needed to be repainted quite often because people drive over it? And we don't have an area that people aren't like only cycling other than the current bike path, but
Who uses the sharrows, are they for cars?
No, sharrows are just to alert drivers that there could be cyclists on the road.
Yeah.
And they don't have as much wear issues as the cross hatching, because they're in the middle of the lane and the tires go on the outside of them.
okay.
Unless it's a turning area, but normally you don't.
I have no idea what we're talking about.
I'm talking about a decal
pavement
painted on the
marking.
road.
Yeah, a pavement marking that's a bike with some arrows in front of
I
it.
think if we had tons of bike riders and there was high kind of impact area, like Miller, like crossing through Miller or something,
Oh, there it
like
is.
where people
Go
are
down.
at risk, but I don't know that
Oh,
there's
those.
any,
Yeah.
Oh, I
I
see.
don't know that we have that enough bike people riding. Like, those should be used where there's,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
like, bring your attention to, this is a particular high
That's
danger
right.
zone, and I don't know if we just have the ridership to justify those. Eventually, with the bike path, like maybe going through the intersections that the bike path goes through, it would be handy to have those like ahead of where the intersection is. So people, the amount of times I've had people make right turns in front of me is like, those would be awesome to have once the bike path is in.
Mhm.
Right now, I don't know that we would need
Yeah.
those.
Well, it sounds like we're talking about share the road bike signs, but on the same post as other signs.
Yes.
I think sometimes that makes pointy things stick out that are, you know, there's heights that signs are supposed to be at and that kind of thing, but maybe that's the first thing we can think about, Emma.
Well, maybe we should, I think we've had a few ideas, and Emma can sort of think about these a little bit, and, well, I don't want to put you a whole bunch of work. I mean, but some of them do require checking with Public Works to see if that's even feasible.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a little bit more justification behind these two items
Yeah.
in terms of the budget that we're
Yeah.
asking for.
Well, for the first one, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Mm-hmm.
I
How
think
about-
that would be great.
How about one of the, because the sharrows, when you hit an uphill section, you're gonna see them more as a driver,
That's an idea.
maybe. So one at the bottom of
7 Hills.
Seven Hills, one at the bottom of this hill right here.
Yeah.
and one on Old Bay Hill or somewhere else where you know, where you're suddenly getting into a hillier section and there's curves and where you want to remind people after the Cove and this one right down here, but just like 3 or 4 of those places where drivers are coming up to a hill and visibility starts to get less and you might want to put one on the pavement. a few
Yeah,
places.
the proposed cycling network shows where the, like you don't want to create every road as
Yeah,
a cycling
yeah.
route.
Right,
So
right.
those would be the main cycling routes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so does that coincide with the areas that you're talking about?
It looks, yes, Seven Hills is purple.
Seven Hills.
And secondary bikeway, I think what we're talking about is secondary bikeways.
Yeah.
And then, well, we could put a couple more on our way across the island because we don't have a multi-use pathway there yet, right?
Well, where the existing one fades into the road, you would have one
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, the different places where, visibility is bad. Maybe it's where you have deer crossing signs. You know, those kind of wooded places where it gets a
I
little
mean,
narrow.
I know, I could sort of, from cycling across a million times,
Yeah,
there's some blind hills
that's the ones.
where people come up fast behind you, like just around Harding Road, for instance,
Yeah.
there's 2 hills, one
Yeah.
before, one after Harding Road, and it's on curves, and people can come up fast and you're puffing up that hill.
Yeah,
and going-
that's kind of what I'm thinking of,
Yeah.
because that then, and as people come up the hill,
Yeah.
the Sharrow would be more visible
Yeah.
to them as
Okay.
drivers. And the same with the bottom of Seven Hills, because it's the same.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So for 5,000, we could either do more shared signage, shared road signage,
Yeah.
recycling signage, or we could do a few sharrows. Which direction would you like to go?
I think
I'm leaning towards the Sharrow.
Sharrows,
now.
what, yeah, and
Never
if
mind.
there's a way that we can see whether they're effective, I guess it's really hard to evaluate.
It's really hard to evaluate.
But rather than putting up,
Scott?
I do like the idea of, I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about, where there's, someone's up on the top of the hill and you can't see them yet.
Yeah.
Up on right there is good. I do kind of like the idea of saving the Sharrows for when we have more of a bike path involved, because it's gonna be,
Yeah.
they're so visible and it's kind of like, the ridership will be higher and there will be some key intersections that people are crossing, and that's when we all of a sudden, put the paint on
Yeah.
the road, whereas
yeah, you're right.
we're kind of
They're
losing a
more for
little bit of
lanes.
our,
Yeah.
we're kind of losing a little bit of our, like,
Sort of using a toolkit a little bit too early.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And now since we're talking about trouble spots or risky spots for cyclists with hills, so those spots and the bottom of Seven Hills and maybe right down here, maybe those are the places for 4 signs or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I think
You
right in that area, after the building center,
Yeah. There's one after the building center, the steep hill right at the end across from the old garden center. But the curves, the blind curves on either side of Harding Road are tricky. People go fast and they don't see you, and people coming over the top as well. And they're passing you without bothering to check to
Could-
see if someone's coming down the hill in front
Could
of
this be an action item that you could take a map and put dots on so that,
you. Sure.
So I can amend, right now I just want to focus on the work plan.
Yeah.
I can amend this to specify that we are going to
Yeah, well-
install additional,
Signage in
signage.
dangerous areas.
for
Yeah,
cycle
that's fine.
safety.
And we'll figure it out.
I can come back with some updated
Yeah.
pricing for installation,
That's
and
good.
then we can decide how many
How
signs
many and
we're
where.
working
Right.
with and where we want to put them.
okay, so just for kind of spots that we know of that
Yeah.
are
Okay,
risky and hilly and blind.
good.
Okay,
What's next?
Can we get a recommendation on that?
Yes, please.
That the Transportation Advisory Committee recommend the council approve the 2019 Transportation Work Plan as amended at its October 23rd, 2018 meeting.
Okay,
I'll move that.
seconded.
And then really quick update on multi-use.
What
Hang
did you
on,
say?
all in
Those
favor?
Those in
Aye.
favor?
Sorry.
Aye,
Good.
thank you, Susanna. Yeah.
Eye on the clock, trying to catch
Yep.
this berry.
Okay.
So the multi-use, actually Bike Barn first.
Yeah, it's good.
As may have noticed, it's
Yeah.
started construction.
Great,
Yeah.
fabulous.
Building inspector is
Yeah.
leading that. He tells me it will be done by end of year.
Woohoo.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The multi-use path, possible good news. I don't want to get my hopes up too high right now, but with the survey work that we had done and the geotech that we had done
Yeah.
over the summer, The engineers are reevaluating the design, and they believe they may be able to widen that road enough without any blasting.
Great, this is the Charlie's
Wow.
Down corner?
Yes.
Yeah,
It does mean that we will build out a little bit
Out a
on the
little.
slope.
yeah.
But he believes with the environmental study that we had done,
Yeah.
he believes he can do that within the requirements.
Great,
Excellent.
Oh, that would be fabulous.
that's lovely.
So it's yet to be confirmed, but that's the latest update I got. from
But
him.
even on the outside of the corner then, on the downslope, that's still not our property. It's
Oh,
Campo Lot.
yes, I also need to get confirmation.
Okay.
That
From the
it's okay
landowners,
to
yeah.
expand on
Yeah, I
that
shouldn't have
side.
said that, should
Yeah.
I?
Okay,
All right.
great.
Thank
That's
you, Anna.
sounding better? Yes, wonderful.
Yeah,
Okay, super.
so that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Okay, so, Ellen, council update?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I don't know if this will have much to do with transportation,
Okay.
but council approved business licenses.
Yes, yes.
And so I don't know what that will mean and what businesses might be there, but I just wanted to say it's another toolkit. Another kit potentially, I don't know, there's not a lot of transportation businesses, but
Well,
just so you know.
the scooter rental.
Scooter rental, taxi, they've got their own licenses, but I don't know. I just wanted,
Okay.
just in case. So this is quick. Lot 1, which is the piece of community land across from Bix,
Yeah.
right, between Government Road and Mount Gardner Road, has been rezoned
Right.
as of yesterday or whatever that was.
Yeah.
So that is complete. The election happened, as everybody knows, so David and I are re-elected. Melanie is probably not mayor, but that's still to be confirmed by 4 o'clock tomorrow,
Right.
whether Gary or Melanie
Yeah.
is mayor, but I'm pretty sure it's looking like Gary.
Yes, Gary, yeah.
And but otherwise, the election results are out there.
Yeah.
People can look at them. And you wanted to mention
Yeah.
something about Cardina.
Well, I got this email from,
Sorry, that,
Well, in the info item, if you're doing the council update, there is an excerpt from October 9th council meeting regarding the fair traffic and nuisance streets bylaw, 3rd March time.
right,
oh,
And all that for,
yeah.
I think I brought that up at the last
Was it
meeting,
the-
right?
oh, I thought it was October 9th. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we discussed it, I'm not sure.
Use the streets. Anyway, yeah, I think I brought up the,
Yeah, it's on page 45 or 47. if you
Yeah.
want to.
oh, okay, sorry, I thought I'd done that before.
So all
But maybe,
vehicles
you know what it
must-
was? It was the subdivision and servicing bylaw. So this one is done too.
Yeah,
Thank you, Steph.
and so that's things around the ferry line, you know, where people park for the coffee shop and then the cars
Oh,
behind them. don't
yeah,
pass.
thank you, Steph.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
is the rules for ferry
Yeah.
lining up.
Yeah.
So now there's an actual bylaw about the ferry lineup.
Yeah,
That thou shalt pull up to within 24 inches, and that you enter after the very last last vehicle in the lineup, no overnight parking, and no stopping in the ferry lane other than for waiting for the next available ferry. So now there are bylaws, and bylaw officer is going to, there'll be more work done, but it's in the budget that this is going to be part of what the municipality is bylaw enforcing. So, thank you, Steph.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Forgot about that.
so the last item, have you done then?
Yeah.
The last item I have then, this is something we discussed back 3 months ago, 4 months ago, the parking on Cardina. We spent a long time trying to figure out what to do. And anyway, so they switched those all-day parking to 3 hours. And I've got a letter from somebody saying that, well, actually, they're pretty well empty most of the day. Like, I have no idea if that's true.
No.
Is it full most of the day?
Well, I think I got a letter like that too,
Yeah.
but it was from a commuter.
Yes, this is what I mean.
And
from
I'm
a
going,
commuter.
so that's a commuter who's not here all day, how would they know?
That's a good
And
question.
so I thought I would go take a few photos, but
Yeah.
it looks to me like it's full.
Okay.
When I've been there trying to go to the library,
Oh. Yeah.
the parking is well used. It
Okay.
appears to me.
Yeah, I mean,
I,
I remember when we discussed this, my view, and I don't remember how we all voted and so on, but my concern was, that, you know, the 5:30 to 6:30 in the morning folks, every second counts, whereas for anyone else who's going to the library or anything else, you know, if you have to walk for 5 minutes, it doesn't really matter.
Well,
But anyway,
yeah,
and we
this
had our
was-
decision, council's made a decision,
Yeah.
that if they are empty, then that's useful information, but if they're not, I mean, I haven't checked myself, I guess I should.
well, when I walk by there and I go to the Cove Commons, which is
Yeah.
the building that's sitting
Yeah.
in the footprint of the previous parking lot.
Yeah,
So that parking isn't there anymore, it used to be full too.
yeah.
And people using the library and the Cove Commons and the businesses. Or who are, I guess, just going over to Docks on the Bay or something that they can do within
Yeah.
3 hours. There's people using those spots. I don't have detailed information from bylaw or anything like that. That would be the people to ask for
Yeah.
fulsome info.
It would.
Yeah.
But I'll try and take a few photos and
If
sort
you
of,
can take a few photos, and I'll try to do the same.
Yeah.
I'm going down there tomorrow, so I'll have a look.
okay.
Okay, thanks. There's one more item in the information items, and that was 7.1A, around the Cobb bus shelter on page 40. I don't
Yeah.
know. Did we talk about that in the last meeting? I'm not sure. I talked about it in a couple of meetings, but I don't remember which one.
I have an update
Okay,
from council. That came to council, and there were questions at the council meeting, most of them perhaps from me.
okay.
And, because I was asking how a building that was, the
Huge.
Cobb, yeah, it's bigger than a school bus, what was described, and it would be, and what the idea was that it would be walls all the way up to the ceiling.
Yeah.
So it would basically be a three-sided, dark shelter, and, which is not what, let me just say, even women my age don't go into things like that.
Yeah.
And I looked up the TransLink bus shelter standards,
Right.
and they're supposed to be transparent, and they're supposed to be partly so for the safety side of things, partly for like people-to-people safety,
Yeah.
partly so that people can see the buses coming,
Yeah.
and they don't miss the buses, and partly so the bus drivers can see the people
Right.
and who are waiting, and that kind of thing. Also, there were the issue of Remembrance Day and events and foot races in the parade and all kinds of other uses of that public space were brought up, and the Green Man Festival and things like that. So, anyway, I also brought up the point that the library hadn't been consulted, so it was kind of a funny process. It's the beginning, right? It's the
Yeah.
beginning of how do all these things work together, and the library board hadn't been consulted, and then, so it was a bit funny.
Yeah.
Putting a
And it
big
blocks
building
off-
in-
Blocks off the front view of a very pretty building.
Yeah, and already the gallery people want to have the door open so
Right.
that people can see that they're open, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it was a bunch of different issues, I think, that just hadn't been thought through, so,
Yeah.
that application just disappeared. Poof, it was withdrawn, maybe for more thought, maybe
Okay.
something else will come forward, I'm not sure. But it's gone away, the idea that Emma can still apply for TransLink funding for a bus shelter.
Okay.
And so I think
Good.
it doesn't need to be discussed.
Well, the other thing that I was worried about is we're trying to, when we get our new Snug Cove terminal redone in a year or two.
The ferry terminal,
The ferry terminal, we've got in our transportation plan that they be if possible,
That
a
the buses
bus
go
turnaround.
there, yeah.
They could go right down there, so that this bus stop would disappear.
yeah,
And it would be sort of unfortunate to have a big solid structure.
yeah. So
Okay.
I think a bunch of that,
Yeah.
it was early days, it was
Sure.
people trying to come forward with a
Yeah,
creative idea,
creative
and
idea,
I
yeah,
hate
right.
to,
You don't wanna
I don't want
be-
to say anything negative
Exactly,
about it, except that
Yeah.
we'll see what happens
Yeah.
from here.
Okay. I think we've completed our agenda.
Yep.
Move adjournment? Any objections to moving to adjournment? I hear none, we are adjourned. Thank you, Susanna.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye, Susanna,
Yeah.
thank you.
And Tyler, I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.